Many breaking news are coming in as we come on the air. Hi and very warm welcome at Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Following news headlines have been reported by world major English news channels and news agencies. So please watch it.
ABC, home of the election. Today, severe weather starts to affect southeast Queensland, with tropical cyclone Alfred expected to make landfall early Saturday.
The hazards, including the wind, rainfall, storm surge and flooding, remain, and we expect them to develop through the day today and then increase as the system approaches the coast.
Thousands of homes lose power in northern New South Wales, with tens of thousands of residents urged to evacuate. Also ahead, an emergency-level bushfire burning on WA's south coast escapes containment lines. And US President Donald Trump orders a pause in intelligence sharing with Ukraine after relations deteriorate. Hello, welcome to ABC News. I'm Lorna Dunkley. Latest estimates have Tropical Cyclone Alfred making landfall between the Sunshine and Gold Coasts very early on Saturday morning.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. It's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out the colour of your skin. Does that determine your prison sentence? Should criminals be banned from pubs? And should cousins be banned from marrying? I'm Josh Howie, and tonight I'm joined by Kerry Marks and Paul Cox, who are cousins and may get married, to take you through Thursday's top stories. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Sam Francis. Very good evening to you from the newsroom. It's just after 11 o'clock. Leading the news tonight, the Justice Secretary has called for a U-turn on planned changes that would make an offender's background a bigger factor in sentencing. Shabana Mahmood says she's written to the Sentencing Council urging them to scrap the new guidance after the Conservatives accused Labour of creating two-tier justice. The changes due in April would place more emphasis on pre-sentence reports, particularly for offenders from ethnic or faith minorities, survivors and women. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, though, has called it anti-white and anti-Christian bias, but Mahmood insists bias in the justice system. Tonight, the UK and Ireland have pledged to work more closely together as their leaders met for a major summit in Liverpool. Sir Keir Starmer and the Irish Premier say their partnership is more important than ever in an uncertain world. The two governments want to reset in relations after tensions over Brexit and legacy laws on Northern Ireland. They'll host business talks on trade, energy and construction before agreeing a new cooperation plan through to 2030. The Trump administration has been holding secret talks with Hamas in Qatar to secure the release of hostages in Gaza. It marks a major shift in US policy, which has long avoided direct engagement with the terrorist group. Sources suggest the talks include efforts to free voice next phase soon. Police are launching an international appeal to trace more potential victims of serial rapist Zhen Hao Zhao, one of the UK's most prolific predators. The Chinese PhD student has been convicted today of attacking 10 women, but officers fear he may have drugged and assaulted more than 50 others in the UK and in China. He targeted young Chinese women, luring them to his flat for drinks or study before drugging them. He also filmed the attacks and kept footage, and sometimes his victims' belongings, telling the court they were souvenirs. The 28-year-old was also found guilty of voyeurism, false imprisonment, and possessing extreme pornographic images. And the UK is preparing a joint bid to host the 2035 Women's World Cup, with England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland set to submit an expression of interest. The plan follows a FIFA announcement setting the timeline for bids. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says a World Cup on home soil would be a monumental moment, boosting the economy and inspiring future generations. The UK last hosted a women's tournament in 2022 and will co-host the Men's European Championship in 2028. We can expect a decision on the World Cup by 2026. That's it from me for this evening. I'll be back with you very shortly, next week I think, but now it's time for headlines.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the...
Be the best of tomorrow's newspapers with the best of today's comedians. First things first, going to have a look at the front pages. The Daily Mail, new two-tier justice fiasco. The Guardian, US stops sharing intelligence with Kyiv. Telegraph, Trump turns off Ukraine missiles. So plenty more papers to come in a couple of minutes. First, we're going to get straight into the Daily Mail. Hello, Kerry, Mark.
Hello.
Tonight, breaking news, the whiteout conditions, highway pileups, the storm sweeping into the east at this hour, now turning deadly. Tonight, 115 million Americans in 25 states under alerts for blizzard conditions and dangerous winds. And now severe storms from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, New York to Boston. Blinding snow shutting down parts of I-80. Wind gusts flipping a big rig onto its side. A second storm now coming, and Lee Goldberg has the forecast. Also breaking as we come on tonight, President Trump's trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China. Canada and China retaliating already. Mexico planning to retaliate this weekend. And tonight, what's now happened with America's big three automakers. Tonight, an alleged terror suspect now in custody and brought to the U.S. The scene at Dulles Airport. Federal prosecutors accusing him of helping to plan the deadly Afghanistan bombing at Kabul Airport's Abbey Gate during the U.S. withdrawal. 13 U.S. service members and more than 150 civilians killed. Tonight, 3 American skiers trapped and feared dead following an avalanche, buried in up to 40 feet of snow. The remarkable discovery tonight, a boy kidnapped when he was just 7 years old, tonight found 7 years later alive and where he's been discovered. Tonight there's news of the Idaho College murders case, the suspect Brian Koberger's attorneys, and what they're now saying about one of the victims. And they allegedly discovered a teenage son, now a person of interest, found 800 miles from home with a gun. Authorities suspect he killed his mother and stepfather and took off. The arrest tonight, authorities say a couple that had missed the boarding of their flight, arrested after trying to force their way on, accused of doing. There's news tonight about a popular weight loss drug and the price cut by nearly a quarter. A-star LeBron James in the moment, the first player ever to score 50,000 points in a career. And America Strong tonight, the famous actor and the big surprise. Cut by nearly a quarter. NBA star LeBron James in the moment, the first player ever to score 50,000 points in a career. And America Strong tonight, the famous actor and the big surprise for so many, right before the prom. You'll want to see this. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Tonight, a temporary truce in the growing trade war. A one-month pause for automakers has markets rising again, but warning signs remain when and why the price of some staples at the grocery store are going up, as President Trump acknowledges there could be, quote, a little disturbance. Across country, severe storms from whiteout conditions to the crash shutting down an interstate. 3 dead from severe storms as at least 13 tornadoes spin up across the plains and deep south.
I knees, and I've never prayed so hard in 15 seconds in my life.
Plus, a potential thaw with Ukraine, new signs of progress after the major reversal, the Trump administration pausing the sharing of intelligence and halting shipments of weapons and equipment already en route. The fallout after the longest presidential address to Congress in history, the divisive message digging into culture wars, the president touting progress on illegal immigration, and the congressman poised to be censured after being removed. Our investigation into the toxic smoke and ash left behind on homes after wildfires, and the owners now battling insurance.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, turmoil over...
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson.
I'm Maurice Dubois. President Trump got 2/3 of the veterans vote in November, but we noticed he never mentioned them in his nearly 100-minute address last night. And now we have learned he's cutting some 80,000 jobs at the VA.
We'll have more about that in a moment. Today, the commander-in-chief was prosecuting the trade war he started when he put a 25% tax on goods imported from Canada and Mexico, and doubled the tax on imports from China to 20%.
They responded with tariffs of their own. The president spoke by phone today with Canada's prime minister, but neither side budged.
The president also spoke with Detroit's big three automakers. He gave them a 1-month exemption from the tariffs, but urged them to build more cars in the United States so they're yet less dependent on foreign imports.
Wall Street liked the temporary reprieve. The big three stock indexes posted gains of more than 1%. Weijia Jiang is at the White House for us tonight. Weijia?
We know President Trump pays close attention to Wall Street, but top aides say it does not drive his decision-making as deal-maker-in-chief. Tonight, less than 48 hours after those tariffs went into effect, we are learning what does. American companies caught in the middle.
In public, presidential tough talk is fueling the trade war.
Whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. Even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
In private, administration officials are in constant contact with Canadian and Mexican counterparts, with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick leading negotiations. Just hours after Canada retaliated with tariffs on U.S. exports, he was working the phones, calling Canadian officials. Sources familiar with Lutnick's call with the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, describe it as aggressive and tough. Lutnick told Ford to stand down. Not only did Ford refuse, he said, if anything, his province would go harder.
To President Trump, don't force our hand. You underestimate Canadians, you're making a massive mistake.
Yesterday, President Trump had a call with the big three U.S. automakers, Ford, Stellantis, and GM, who have been pressuring him for a carve-out for vehicles built in Canada and Mexico. This morning, Lutnick said Trump was considering walking back tariffs on some sectors. By this afternoon, the White House announced a 1-month exemption for cars and trucks. Still,
A big day here in the D.C. swamp, where the mayors of several prominent sanctuary cities were called to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Not surprisingly, things got a little heated. What a shock. Take a look.
Would you turn that criminal over to ICE?
This happened outside the city of Boston, but I can tell you, in the city, whenever someone commits a crime, whenever there's a criminal warrant, we hold them accountable. If ICE deems that they are dangerous enough to obtain a criminal warrant, and the Boston police will enforce it.
Will you turn that criminal over to ICE?
We follow the laws, and we make sure.
Do you consider yourself a sanctuary city? That's just. We do not under that definition. You don't use the definition, so you're not a sanctuary. We call ourselves a welcoming city.
We're not pulling the curtain back. We have ripped the curtain from the rods. We have revealed to America just how fast we could have secured our border if you had an executive that was willing to enforce the law. So now we're paying attention to our municipalities. And every one of them is lawyered up. They've changed their narrative. You'll be held accountable. One of you said you're willing to go to jail. We might give you that opportunity.
Mayor, yes or no?
They should be deported.
Okay, Mayor.
Any individual that
Yes or no?
causes harm
Yes or no?
and breaks
Okay,
the law
Mayor Wu?
should be held accountable.
This is why you have 6% approval rating, because you suck at answering questions.
I do not think you guys are bad people, but I think that you are ideologically misled, which is why, unfortunately, based on your responses, I'm all going to be criminally referring you to the Department of Justice for investigation.
And while the mayors were getting grilled, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, she was up in New York City at the subway station where an illegal immigrant stands accused of lighting a woman on fire last year. She's back in D.C. from that trip. Madam Secretary, it's so good to see you. I keep wanting to say governor. I'm like, I got to get used to it.
You can. A lot of people are still making that mistake.
Okay. It has been so bad during the campaign. I rolled not only Laken Riley, Jocelyn Nungary, and Rachel Morin, I'd roll all the names. And maybe I'll have my team pull up those scroll. All the names of all these people murdered, raped, victims.
The U.S. slams the brakes on punishing tariffs for automakers temporarily. The hints more pauses are possible as Canada demands to turf the tariffs entirely.
Zero tariffs, and we are not going to budge.
And some tips on how you can prepare your personal finances.
Don't look at what's happened in the last 3 months.
If the U.S. is no longer a reliable ally, how fast Canada needs to ramp up defense spending.
I think we became complacent as Canadians.
American support for Ukraine pushed further in doubt what else Trump has cut off and what it means on the battlefield. Plus, a ruffling of feathers caught on camera. A battle between a Canada goose and a bald eagle. Who came out on top?
Global National with Donna Friesen. Égalité, actualité.
Good morning, I'm Oliver Farry, and this is Daybreak. EU leaders aim to approve radical measures to increase defence spending at a summit in Brussels, which will be attended by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The move comes in the face of a change in Washington's messaging regarding its support for the security of Europe and Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron says Europe should consider the possibility of sending peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. The Trump administration stopped sharing intelligence information with Kyiv following the explosive meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump last Friday. CIA Director John Radcliffe says the move is a temporary one aimed at moving the two sides closer in negotiations, but it could have major consequences on the battlefield. Donald Trump delivers an ultimatum to Hamas to release all remaining hostages in Gaza, where not a single Hamas member will be safe. The strongly worded, quote, last warning comes the same day the White House says the US has been holding talks with Hamas, the first known exchange with a group it has designated a terrorist organization. And a smash and grab at the Parc des Princes sees Liverpool take a slim one-goal advantage into the second leg of the Champions League round of 16 tie against Paris Saint-Germain with a late goal by Harvey Elliott. French giants failed to make their overwhelming dominance count, with Liverpool's Brazilian goalkeeper Alisson making a string of decisive saves.
This is Asia Now.
Hi and good afternoon. It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 a.m. in New Delhi, 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Yasmin Yonkers. At this hour, tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, the China Embassy in Washington says it's ready to fight the U.S. till the end as new American tariffs take effect. The United States pauses intelligence sharing with Ukraine in the latest blow after halting military aid. The French president now considering joining the Ukrainian and British leaders on a trip to the White House to seek an end to the war. U.S. President Donald Trump issues an ultimatum to Hamas leaders to flee, threatening further destruction of Gaza if all remaining hostages are released. The White House also confirmed direct talks with the militant group for the first time since 1997. for, quote, any war with the US, and it be it tariff related or anything else.
Hear that? A Chinese student is here at China. Police fear there could be more than 50 other victims. As the United States cuts off intelligence sharing with Ukraine, the French president makes a plea for American support, but prepares for the worst.
I want to believe that the US will stand by our side, but we have to be ready for that not to be the case.
The White House confirms that US officials have held negotiations with Hamas, breaking a long-standing policy not to engage directly with the group. Ready for a trade war or any kind of war, China hits back against Donald Trump's tariffs as a backlash gathers pace in Canada. Plus, the Chancellor's headache over economic headroom. Our welfare cuts could hold the key for Rachel Reeves in her spring statement. Good morning, thanks for joining us. A Chinese PhD student.
African News. The news.
A trial involving 40 notable opposition figures, including politicians, lawyers, media figures, and business leaders accused of plotting against state security, commenced on Tuesday in Tunisia. The proceedings at the Tunis primary court began with 9 detained defendants absent as judges chose to conduct remote sessions. This decision was criticized by defense attorneys and activists as a violation of fair trial principles. The greatest
Arab leaders on Tuesday endorsed Egypt's post-war plan for the Gaza Strip that will allow its roughly 2 million Palestinians to remain, in a counter-proposal to US President Donald Trump's plan to depopulate the territory and redevelop it as a beach destination. It was unclear if Israel or the United States will accept the Egyptian plan, whose endorsement by Arab leaders announced by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi amounted to a widespread rejection of Trump's proposal. The office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declined to comment. Tuesday's summit in Cairo included the Emir of Qatar, the Vice President of the United Arab Emirates, and the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, countries whose support is crucial for any post-war plan. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also attended. Addressing the summit, El-Sisi said that the plan preserves the right of Palestinian people in rebuilding their nation and guarantees their existence on the land. Israel has embraced what it says is an alternative U.S. proposal for ceasefire itself and the release of hostages taken in Hamas' attack on southern Israel on October 7, 2023, which triggered the war.
In a shocking report, the United Nations Children's Agency has revealed that children as young as 1 year old have been victims of rape across 9 states in Sudan. UNICEF announced on Tuesday that since the start of 2024, 221 children, including boys, have been assaulted by armed individuals based on data collected by gender-based violence service provider in the region.
Data that we have from service providers in Sudan shows us that this is widespread. It has occurred in 9 states, just these 221 rape cases alone, 9 states across the country, including Gadaref, Kassala, Al Jazeera, the Northern State, the River Nile, Khartoum, South Kordofan, and 2 of the Darfur states. And I think this is an example of the fact that this is being used as a weapon of war in Sudan by all parties to the conflict, and no women or child is safe.
UNICEF has documented instances of 61,800 internally displaced and raped children during the humanitarian crisis.
US President Donald Trump has delivered his first address to Congress since regaining power in January this year. Trump's speech, which was record-breaking in length, came after a tumultuous first few weeks in
Thank you very much for giving time to Amir Shackle 5858. I am Amir Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.